Cameroon was a German colony until the First World War. During that war, the Belgian forces, the French forces, and the English forces got to Cameroon, and they were the ones who actually won the Germans out of Cameroon. As a result of that conquest, the United Nations, in the partition of Africa, divided Cameroon into two, and gave a small portion of Cameroon to the British to attach to Nigeria, and then the rest of Cameroon was called the Republic of Cameroon. I want to stress the name of the Republic of Cameroon because it will come back to highlight where we are today. Cameroon is today called the Republic of Cameroon. And I'm saying that 1919, Cameroon was divided into two portions. One part was called the British Cameroons and given to Britain. The other one was called the Republic of Cameroon and given to France. The British took their piece and they divided it into two. The top part, they call it the British Northern Cameroons. The down part, they call it the British Southern Cameroons, and attach it to Nigeria. Specifically to the two Nigerian houses of chiefs, the Northern Nigerian House of Chiefs and the Southern Nigerian House of Chiefs. And this is how these two the German Cameroon got divided. So these two Cameroons were on both sides, with Nigeria, and the Republic stayed alone with France until 1958, when the British Southern Cameroons were already having issues with the Nigerian House of Chiefs, the Southern House of Chiefs, and they decided that they were going to break up and form their own country. They had their own judiciary, their own legislative, and their own executive, it was led by a prime minister. They moved over, and in 1959, they organized their own elections, in which the prime minister, or the then Prime Minister Ndele, was defeated by John Foncha, and John Foncha moved into what we call the Prime Minister's Lodge, which till today is still standing in Biya. That was in 1959. But they were still a colony of Britain. In 1960, on the 1st of January 1960, the Republic of Cameroon got its independence from France. On the 1st of October 1960, 10 months later, Nigeria got its independence from Britain. This small portion of Cameroon was still standing. In February 1961, they then did a plebiscite or a referendum where they asked them, the two portions of this British Cameroon, they asked them two options. Do you want to have independence by joining the already independent Nigeria or by joining the independent Republic of Cameroon? The British Northern Cameroons voted unanimously to stay in Nigeria. The British Southern Cameroons voted 60-40 to go to France. Because before they even did the vote, there were a lot of voices in the British Southern Cameroons, having left Nigeria and they were on their own, who said, we would rather be on our own. But the British at the time thought that they were too small and too few to be an independent state. They thought they were not viable. And that word viable is important because as we go further, we'll see how nature will make them viable. And that's what has even at the origin of our crisis today. So they now join, as I said, 60-40. They moved to France, to the French Cameroon. When they joined, that's in 61 rather, 61. They now got together in what we call the Fuman Conference to craft their first constitution as a federal Republic of Cameroon, because the two parts were joining. In that constitution, they said the British Southern Cameroon that was coming to join was going to be henceforth called West Cameroon, and the Republic of Cameroon would be called East Cameroon. That's what came out of the Fuman Conference. Amadou Ahidjo was the head of the Republic of Cameroon that joined with the British Southern Cameroons led by Foncha. And when they joined the two countries and formed the Federal Republic of Cameroon, Ahidjo became the president of the Federal Republic of Cameroon, and John Foncha was his vice. In that constitution is worth noting that it was clearly stipulated in one of the articles that this is going to be a federal republic, and the idea of a federal republic would never be called into question. And it would be such that as we go further in this country, the two statesmen of this country would always be from both sides of this country. I'm highlighting this because further on we'll understand why. Such that if the president of this country is going to be from the French region, the vice, or whoever is second, should be from the English region, and vice versa. That was 1961. Fast forward to 1972. But before 1972, something major happened, the discovery of oil. When oil was discovered in Cameroon, coincidentally, it was discovered in Limbe, which is, well, then it was called Victoria. And Victoria happened to be in West Cameroon. Once oil was discovered, President Ayijo decided then that no, he launched a constitutional amendment to change the country from the Federal Republic of Cameroon to the United Republic of Cameroon. Because under the Federal Republic of Cameroon, every state had autonomy to the use of its resources, of course, with a bit of it going to the federal government. So this manipulation happened until 20th May 1972. Another amendment of a major amendment of the Constitution was made, in which Cameroon changed from the Federal Republic of Cameroon to the United Republic of Cameroon. I want to back up a bit to remind you people the importance of where we are coming from, because when they took the two regions of Cameroon, East Cameroon and West Cameroon, Ayijo divided the East Cameroon into 5 provinces. He called them provinces at the time. For the purpose of most people in Nigeria, we can call them states. He named them the North, the West, the East, Littoral, and one he called Center-South. It's important to note that he named one West. We had the East, we had the North, we had Center-South. So the 4 cardinal points were taken. When the Anglophones came back, I'll call them Anglophones for the purpose of this discussion. When they now came from West Cameroon, they said, why did you name a province West when we are supposed to be the ones who are called West Cameroon? So they insisted, they went to their own position and said, one will be called Northwest and another one will be called Southwest. As one person remarked the other day, Cameroon is the only country where geographically you have the Northwest and the Southwest touching, and the West is not in the middle. There's something in the name that was very particular to them. So fast forward now, as I said, we are now in 1972. Cameroon became a united republic with 7 provinces, each of them with the same values. And then in 1982, Ayijo resigned as president and handed over government to President Paul Biya. When Paul Biya came, he later on would subdivide the East Cameroon into 8 regions. To do so, he took the north and divided it into 3. The north became the far north, the north, and Adamawa. He came to the center-south, one province that he had called the center-south. He now split it into 2. There's the center and there's the south. So he ended up with 8 provinces of the French Cameroon, and the northwest and southwest remained intact. In 1984, Paul Biya again organized his own another constitutional amendment, and he changed the name of the country from the United Republic of Cameroon to the Republic of Cameroon. We've gone full circle. We started with the Republic of Cameroon joining British Southern Cameroons. We went through the United Republic of Cameroon, through the Federal Republic of Cameroon, the United Republic of Cameroon, and today the country is called the Republic of Cameroon. So the name, and you can see now why I said at the beginning that there's something about the name, because if you take the name now and go back in 1961, that's exactly how the French Cameroon was called. And so we move, while I'm giving the historical perspective, when they joined, the West Cameroon went with 2 parties into this, 2 political parties into this merger. I'm not too conversant about how many parties were in the East Cameroon, but no sooner had they joined that they decided to form one party, the Cameroon National Union, the CNU. So they merged all their parties into one. Ayijo, that's all Ayijo's manipulations. When Paul Biya took over, he delayed, he was the only party until 1992. 1990. At the 1990, we then had multipartyism, which was actually pressured onto him. It's worth noting that multipartyism only came because of the first political party that was formed, forcefully formed in Cameroon, was the Social Democratic Front. It was formed in Bamenda and led by Chairman Frundi. In the course of that creation of multipartyism, he eventually reluctantly accepted parties to be formed. And by the time they went for the first elections, he had 172 political parties. In an election that today we can reliably say John Frundi won, because the then Minister of Territorial Administration has written articles after his imprisonment explaining to the whole world that that election was won by somebody. But that's for another day. So we moved from one party, from many parties to one party. Now, at that beginning of the political revolution, the elections were won marginally by the president. As we speak now, the last elections, he won almost a landslide. So we are almost going back to the one-party system, even though there are many parties in him. I also want to say that when Paul Biya took over Cameroon, there were 3 airstrips. So let me go to the resources. There were 3 airstrips in West Cameroon. As we speak in 1984, there's none. There's no airstrip. You cannot go to any of the West Cameroon by air. You have to go to Douala, and then you come back by land. As I was talking about oil, the discovery of oil in Cameroon, in my opinion, is what has brought us to this place. Because when they discovered oil in the West Cameroon, they now tunneled the oil to the French Cameroon from Victoria to Douala, and that's where the depots are. Such that all the revenue of oil now is paid to the treasury in Douala, and eventually now to the central treasury. We have naturally a deep seaport at the Limbe, at Victoria, and that seaport has been abandoned in favor of an international seaport in Douala, which is dredged every day. I think for historical facts, I brought everybody up to speed. So for languages, just so that we understand why the crisis, when Fidelis speaks about crisis, when the 2 countries joined, they recognized that every official document of the country would be in English and French. So the teachers, starting from education, the teachers were now encouraged, English teachers were encouraged to go and teach English in the French region, and French teachers were encouraged to go and teach French in the English region. Over time, to go and teach, especially in the secondary schools and beyond, you have to go to a teacher's training school. The recruitment of students into these schools has been so biased towards anglophone that mostly the francophones go into those schools. And for you to go and teach, you must have a certificate that you've graduated from one of those teachers' training schools. Such that by this time that we are speaking, we have ended up with a situation where most of the people who are qualified to teach in the secondary schools are actually qualified by going to those teachers' training schools are francophones. And we have ended up in a situation where now, if you go to most of the secondary and high schools in Cameroon, you have a French-speaking person teaching biology and chemistry. Supposedly, yeah, he's supposed to teach in English, but because English is not his first language, he babbles or he even tries in pidgin. That's where the teacher's own crisis comes. Of course, most of the principals of the schools are francophone. Now, in terms of law, there are 2 very distinct legal systems in France and in Britain. The British the law system of the British is called the British common law, and the French have the French civil law. The fundamental difference of those 2 laws, as I know, I'm not a legal expert, but from what I know now, is that the British law says you are innocent until you're proven guilty by the state. The French law says you're actually guilty until you can prove yourself innocent. Just to clarify this point, if all of us are sitting here and a British policeman walks in here and he says, identify yourself, if you don't have anything to identify yourself and you say, sorry, my identity documents are in my house, by British common law, if he insists, he should follow you to your house and prove that you have an identity or not. On the contrary, if a French policeman walks in here now and says, where are your identity? Any one of us who does not have could be arrested. And the person has to struggle to get his identity to follow him wherever they take him. So that's the fundamental difference. Now, to become a magistrate in the common law, you do law, you go to a law school, you are a practicing lawyer, and it's like a promotion from a practicing lawyer into becoming a magistrate. In the French system, that's not the case. After you study law, you go into the school of magistracy, and then you become a magistrate. And that happens, it's the same also for the state councils. They actually go into the same school. Coincidentally now, with this merger of these 2 people, we ended up with a system where the only magistrates who were common law magistrates were those that left Nigeria in the 61 and went over to Cameroon. With over time, the only qualified magistrates have been those that have gone to that school of magistracy. And in the school of magistracy, the curriculum is civil law by nature. And that's how we ended up now, all the magistrates in our courts, and all the state councils actually have gone to that school of magistracy, which has a program, French civil law origin. And so that's the issue of the lawyers. Now, what breaks the camel's back for the lawyers is that last year, the civil law from France, they sent the civil law code called OHADA Code, and they sent it to all francophone countries in Africa. When it came to Central Africa, the Cameroon government took the code. The Minister of Justice sent a decree and said, henceforth, in the whole of Cameroon, that's the law that will be applicable. Not only is the law civil law by nature, but that document also came to Cameroon in French. The minister sent it to the 10 provinces in Cameroon in French. The lawyer's revendication, number one, was that this now completely wipes away our common law nature. Number two, the document you haven't sent to us is in French. And so they rejected the document and said even if they had to concede to take the document, it should be translated. The government resisted both. And the rest, as they say, is history. Maybe we'll pass it over. I'll pass it over back to Prof. And then I hope I've been able to give. If I've not finished, as we know, we're going to get to the question and answer.